Most guys do not know how to do this. Even high-value guys are clueless, and even guys who study game and have studied it for years do this only occasionally and kind of by accident. But in this video, I'm going to teach you how to create sexual tension in less than 60 seconds. Let's dive in. When you think of getting a girl turned on, you might think of a girl getting physically aroused, or you might think of a girl making out with you. And that is kind of the fire we're going for. But it doesn't start there. When you first meet a girl, that fire starts with a spark. And that spark is sexual tension. Because I'm a big nerd, I'm going to break that down to a mathematical formula for you so that you can make that sexual tension happen in all of your interactions. So let's talk about the elements of this formula. What are the pieces that create sexual tension? The first element of sexual tension is sexual relevance. This basically means the girl sees you as a potential sexual option. She sees you as someone in the right category for her to have sex with. So for example, if the only conversation you've ever had with a girl is about like the weather or what the homework was or something like that, there's no reason for her to think it's even socially okay for her to have a sexual thought about you. And if she doesn't feel like she can make a sexual move, she won't. By the way, you may have heard in my other videos the term premise. This is a similar kind of concept to premise. It's the idea that you need to make sure that the conversation you're having is a man-to-woman conversation. Without that, you're probably going to have a platonic friend-to-friend conversation. You're going to end up friend-zoned. You're not going to end up having any kind of sexual tension or any understanding on her part that you were ever even interested. The next element in sexual tension is uncertainty. The girl needs to have a little bit of doubt about whether she can have you. If she's too certain she can have you, if she's too sort of secure and complacent about it, there's nothing really there. People don't value things that come to them too easily. They value the things they had to work for. If you can make her work for you, if you can make her doubt just a little bit if she can have you, it's gonna accentuate all the sexual energy that's present in the conversation. The next element in sexual tension is validation. You need to feel like a win to the girl. She needs to feel like if she gets you to like her, she is of a higher status, or she has achieved something, or she is special in some way. If you can make her feel that, she's going to pursue you much, much, much harder than she would otherwise. And the fourth element, which enhances sexual tension, is investment. Think of this as like energy and commitment. How much effort has she put in? How much has she contributed to the conversation? There's this principle in psychology called commitment and consistency, which basically says you have to view yourself as congruent with these actions you've taken. So if the girl is acting around you the way she acts around someone she cares about, i.e. she's investing effort, over time she's going to feel like she cares about you more and more. So the amount of effort she's investing is another critical component of sexual tension. So those are the positive elements that create sexual tension. However, there's one huge element which destroys sexual tension, and that's resistance or rejection. And there's two forms of this. Either if she resists your frame or rejects you. Okay, so resisting your frame is like, let's say you go in like very cocky and she just doesn't buy it. She thinks you're full of shit, or she thinks you're just too playerish and it's fake. That's going to create a lack of sexual tension. That's going to destroy whatever sexual tension you may have created. Also, if you are very upfront, especially people use like a direct opener, or they use a direct compliment where you basically say to the girl, in this moment, I'm asking you directly if you will have sex with me. If in that moment her answer is no, that's going to be, it's like deflating the balloon. All the sexual tension is gone. So you want to develop all these positive elements of sexual tension while avoiding rejection of your frame or rejection of you. That's the formula. So that was a lot. That formula is pretty long and pretty convoluted even for me, right? You might be a little confused. That's okay. I'm going to break it down for you this way. I'm going to show you how they exhibit these elements to make each element make sense to you so you can use it in your own game. So let's look at the most common beginner opener in all of game. Hi, you're cute. I wanted to meet you. Does this create sexual tension or does it not? Let's have a quick look. Well, first of all, it does have sexual relevance. You are putting yourself in the right category, right? You're definitely saying this is a man-to-woman conversation. So we can check that box. Sexual relevance, yes. Uncertainty, does the girl have uncertainty about whether or not she can have you? No, she really doesn't. So it doesn't tick that box. There's not really a lot of uncertainty there. Now, I will say that if you do this line and then you create uncertainty after the fact, you may still be able to create it. So it's not to say that this line can never work. I'm just saying that this line in and of itself doesn't have uncertainty. If anything, it decreases the uncertainty, which is why actually, if I do use a line like this, I almost always will do something teasing or dismissive or uncertainty creator afterwards because the situation needs it after a line which kills uncertainty like this one. Does this line contain validation for the girl? Well, that depends. It's kind of a wild card. card. If you come off as a high value guy and she likes some aspect of you and wants to keep you liking her, then it actually could contain validation. And especially, again, if you create that uncertainty afterwards and she feels the need to keep your attention, there could be validation after the fact. But the line itself is not creating validation. It's making a situation where she kind of already has. You've already said, I like you right from the get-go. So she doesn't feel like she has to try super hard for you. Again, she might decide that she wants to keep your attention or keep that affection, depending on what you do afterwards. So maybe you can create validation after the line, but the line itself doesn't make you a source of validation. And does this line create investment on the girl's part? Again, if she decides that she likes the feeling of you liking her and she wants to keep it afterwards, maybe, but the line itself really doesn't. What about resistance? Rejection of your frame? Well, she's not going to reject the frame. The frame's a compliment, right? That idea that you like her, the idea that she's attractive, she's going to like that frame. So she's not going to reject the frame. However, you are asking her right away to make a decision. Would I sleep with this guy? Right? You're saying very much, I have a sexual interest in you. Within a few moments of meeting her, she's going to look you up and down and say, are you within the realm of person I would consider that with? And it's very often that the answer may be no if you're not just the most physically attractive guy or if your first impression wasn't the greatest. That's why this kind of opener leads to a high percentage of girls going, I have a boyfriend in response to this opener, whether or not they actually do have a boyfriend. So overall, is this opener good or bad? Well, it's better than a lot because a lot of things guys will do, like talking about the weather or just beating around the bush and never getting to the point, does far less than this one. And if you follow this opener up well with things that can create a little bit of uncertainty or make you a source of validation after the fact, this opener can be very, very good. But it doesn't within itself contain all of the elements of sexual tension. It only contains some of them. For the next line we're going to consider, let's try something really, really cocky. So let's take the line, hi, excuse me, I was wondering if by any chance you'd happen to have noticed how incredibly good looking I am. Not a lot of people use this line, fair enough, but I have seen it used and I have seen it used effectively, and it does have some of the elements of sexual tension, so it is very instructive. Let's break this line down. First of all, are you being sexually relevant? Are you putting yourself in that category of man to woman? Yes, you are. Because you're talking about her noticing how good looking you are, that's absolutely saying this is a man to woman conversation. It's absolutely saying this is about flirtation, this is about sex. So that box, check. Is there uncertainty in her mind over whether she can have you? Maybe, because you are being cocky and cocky and arrogant guys are a little bit more hard to get. And actually, as opposed to the previous line where you're saying, I like you, you're saying, I was wondering if you'd noticed how cool I am. I think you might like me. So there's at least a little more friction there. There's a little more like, maybe this guy's cocky, maybe this guy likes me, maybe he's just an asshole, who knows? So there is a little more uncertainty than with the direct compliment as well. So let's say we can tick that box too. What about validation? Are you setting yourself up with this line as a source of validation for the girl? Well, in a way, yes, because you haven't indicated that she's won you over. You just indicated that you're an arrogant asshole. And so usually guys who can get away with being arrogant are at least a little bit high value. And you also, with your opener, have kind of indicated, if anything, that you think you're at a level above her, i.e. did you think I was attractive? If she accepts your frame, and this is a big if we'll get to in a minute, but if she accepts your frame, then you actually have put yourself as a source of validation. So put this one as maybe a check. It depends if she accepts your frame or not. What about energy and commitment? Will she invest? And again, this is a big question mark. She might. Some girls will invest heavily here. Some girls will start giving you shit and bantering with you, and that creates a much more charged interaction. Other girls will be like, yeah, well, f that, and they won't participate. So it's a big question mark. Sometimes this will get participation and investment, sometimes it won't. But let's look at the massive problem with this line. The massive problem with this line is not that it doesn't have the positive elements of sexual tension, it's that it has a huge amount of the negative elements. There is a very huge likelihood of the girl resisting your frame or rejecting you on this one, because you're being so blatant, so obvious, so playerish in game, and so in her face that it's very likely the answer to this will be a shit test or a f you or I don't believe you or what the hell, that kind of a thing. Now, shit tests can be a good thing. If you know how to pass them, they're actually a catalyst for creating more sexual tension. But an outright rejection or the feeling in her mind that you're just full of shit and playerish, or that like this didn't just happen, it's not natural, those are not good things. So the problem with this line is not that it doesn't create a lot of sexual tension, it actually potentially could, but the problem is it's just very rejectable, it's very obvious. While the girl may understand that there's sexual tension present, she may feel the sexual tension, her instinct is going to be like, whoa, what the fuck, there's something about this I don't like, so while I'm feeling the sexual tension, I'm going to put a lot of resistance up against it. So these two openers we've looked at do have elements of sexual tension, but they're not fully creating sexual tension all by themselves, which is kind of fine, by the way, because the purpose of an opener mainly is just to get the conversation started. heard. It's fine if you get the conversation started and you create sexual tension with something else. Let's look at some lines that are designed specifically as flirtatious lines. We're going to look at two of the most popularly used lines and most effective lines in all of game. First line I want to look at is, "You and I would not get along." This is one of my all-time favorite lines in all of game, but let's break it down in terms of sexual tension. First of all, is there sexual relevance? Well, I'm talking about you and I, meaning me and the girl, getting along. Can't be more relevant than that. We're clearly talking about a relationship. Now, it is possible I'm talking about will I get along with her in a friendly way or as people or whatever, but it's not a large stretch to think that it is sexual in nature. So we'll say yes, there is sexual relevance there. Is there uncertainty? Absolutely. The whole line is about uncertainty. I'm not sure you and I will get along, or you and I will not get along. It's actually a push away. And now you might say it's not uncertainty because it's a certain negative, we're not going to get along, but the very fact I'm contemplating it, the very fact I'm thinking about us maybe getting along means there's a possibility we will. But the fact I'm saying we're not means there's a possibility that we're not. Therefore, you have your hot, you have your cold. There is definitely that uncertainty. Validation. Does this line trigger her sense of validation? Well, not for sure. Nothing can for sure trigger her sense of validation because that depends on her reaction to it. But it has a strong chance, right? When you're saying you and I would not get along, if she's like, why wouldn't we? Or I get along with everyone, or anything that makes her want to get along with you, want to prove herself to you, want to get her validation back, literally, obviously that's creating validation. So this line again ticks that box. It has a strong chance of creating a sense of you as a source of validation for the girl. What about energy and commitment? Again, this is a possibility. It's likely you may get energy and commitment from her. Nothing is certain, right? It depends how the girl responds to the line. It depends how you deliver it, those kind of things. But if she decides she cares about whether or not you like her, or if she decides that she wants to get you to like her, or if she just decides that she likes positive attention instead of negative attention, even if she doesn't like you, she very likely may invest some energy. So it kind of ticks that box as well. What about resistance? Rejection of frame or rejection of you as a person? Well, it's a little hard for her to reject you as a person because you already rejected her, right? You can't reject someone that rejected you first. Now, she could say, I don't know, like, why should I even care or something like that. So she could reject you as a person. It could happen. I mean, a girl could reject anything technically, but at least by format, it's not the easiest thing to reject. Not gonna say it'll never happen, but not the most common. What about rejecting your frame? This one she could do. So you and I would not get along. When she says, why do I care? Or I didn't want to get along with you anyway, she's rejecting your frame. Or if she says, I think you actually like me, she would be rejecting your frame. So there are shit tests she can give you. And that's actually a quite common thing that may happen after this is you'll get some shit tests, you'll get some banter. But that's actually a good thing within the scope of sexual tension, right? If you get shit tests and you pass them, it makes things better. It actually creates more sexual tension. So if she resists this frame, it may not be good for the interaction, but it will be good for sexual tension and at least gives you an opportunity to do other things that would be good for the interaction. So obviously this line ticks a lot of the boxes, and so it's no surprise that this is one of my favorite lines in all of game, and it's one of the lines that's existed in game since 2002. It's a very, very good line for creating sexual tension. It does a lot of the right things. Quick side note. So in a lot of these categories, I said it depends. It's a question mark. It depends how she reacts. Well, what is going to make her react better is good delivery versus bad delivery. If you deliver this line as like, you and I would not get along. Do you like my line? What do you think? I'm obviously exaggerating and delivering it in a very bad way, but if you deliver it in a very reactive way, or like you care a lot about the line, or like it is this big event in the conversation, that's going to be poor delivery and it's going to get a lot of negative outcomes. Whereas the best way to deliver this line usually is when you're just talking, you kind of throw it out and then you just keep talking as though nothing happens. You're saying, oh yeah, it's funny. I actually came from Colorado. Wait, you and I are not going to get along, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. So anyway, everybody, something like that. And she's like, wait, go back. What was that thing 3 sentences ago? Us getting along? What? That's usually the best way to deliver it, is in a subtle way where it doesn't seem like you care too much about the outcome. It's just something that kind of crossed your mind and then was gone. There's also one alternative good delivery, which is delivering it with a smirk, kind of where you're delivering it in a flirty way. That first one would be more in a group setting. The second one maybe would be later on in the interaction in a one-on-one setting, but delivering it with a smirk can actually be an effective way of delivering it too. Final flirtatious line I want to look at, and again, this is a classic lining game and one that we know works. So what is the line? The line is, I can't decide if I love you or hate you. Okay, so let's talk about it. So does this line have sexual relevance? Yes. I'm going to love you or hate you. Love and hate are words about a relationship. Love and hate are man to woman words, right? You're deciding whether or not it's going to work on a man to woman level. Definitely sexually relevant. Check that box. Is there uncertainty? Well, the whole thing is uncertain. I can't decide whether this or this. Literally, by definition, that's uncertainty. Check the box. So is there validation here? Well, it depends. If she decides she cares whether or not you like her, well, then now you've become a source of validation. And similar to with the last line, that's going to come down to delivery. If you have come across as a high value guy who she has some level of interest and respect for, then it's likely this may trigger her sense of validation. If you come off like a low value loser, she'll be happy to get rid of you and she'll hope that you're not going to get along. Energy and commitment, again, it depends. If she's willing to try to put in the work to be in the positive category rather than negative one, then there will be energy and commitment on her part. If your overall perception in her eyes has been a low value one and she doesn't want to invest the energy, she won't. But it at least gives her something into which to invest the energy if she is seeing you in a positive light. So again, it's a question mark, but it's giving yourself a very good chance. So we've ticked most of the positive boxes. What about the negative boxes? What about resistance and rejection? Can she reject you on this? Certainly she could. She could say like, oh, I didn't care anyway, or something along those lines. It could happen. It is harder for it to happen when you've already taken the same frame. If you've already taken a frame, it's harder for a girl to effectively copy your frame than if she initiated that frame in the first place. All right. So if you already said, I don't know if we're going to get along, she's like, well, I don't know if we're going to get along either. That's a lot weaker of a statement than if you were just talking and she's like, we're not getting along, because you already inserted a frame first. You already kind of led the frame. But yes, she could technically take that frame. Or could she give you shit tests on that? She'd be like, oh, shut up. You know you like me. She absolutely could. But again, shit tests are not necessarily a bad thing. So is there a possibility of resistance and rejection on this? Yes. So while there is a chance that either she will reject you or the frame, it's possible. And there's definitely a chance that she just won't invest enough, especially if your delivery is not good or if you haven't come off as high value already. At least you're giving yourself a chance. You're putting yourself in the right category and you're on the right topics to create validation and energy in a girl that's at all interested. So hopefully breaking down those lines makes the concept of sexual tension make sense to you. You understand the elements, you can put them together. I do want to make a very important point, which is that game is a lot more than just a collection of lines. It's very possible to say the right lines with the wrong delivery or in the wrong places and not have good game. It's also very possible to have a great game without using any canned lines. The ideal is to actually learn all these elements and then just come up with the right lines as you go spontaneously, because you actually understand sexual tension and you feel out what the interaction needs. So lines are a good sort of training wheels. They can certainly help, but I don't want you to think that the definition of sexual tension is I used these two lines. That's a very superficial look at it. It won't work without the proper delivery, and it'll also only take you so far. The lines are used as illustrations of the concept. What I want you to do is understand the concept so much that you don't even need the lines in the long run. So that's sexual tension in a nutshell. If you enjoyed that video, be sure and hit the like button so you can help other men find their way out of platonic conversations to nowhere and the friend zone. Please, they need it, I promise. Also, if you have questions on this concept, I know I went into a lot of depth. Ask your questions below. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to be able to answer those questions. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video.